Welcome back. It's great to have you with us on Point. The BRICS Business Council continues to hold engagements ahead of the annual Head of State meeting, the BRICS Summit, the 15th annual summit. Key areas of focus being discussed include the oceans economy, skills development and the manufacturing sector as players share best practices and look to boost economic opportunities across the nations involved. SABC News' senior economics reporter Nompumelelo Siziba sat down with Advocate Mtho Xulu, the head of the BRICS Business Council Trade and Investment Working Group, and they discussed the issues being raised in that portfolio.
You're joining us here at the Gallagher Convention Centre, where there are a series of panels taking place around the issue of the oceans economy, skills development, and also the manufacturing forum. Earlier, the Minister of Trade and Industry and Competition, Ibrahim Patel, spoke to the manufacturing forum, talking about how it's important to invest in the areas of green energy and other technologies, and that there should be partnerships in ensuring that this happens. One particular area of interest is that of trade and investment. That's a working group that is run by the gentleman who's seated with me, that is Advocate Mtho Xulu, and he's going to be telling us about some of the issues that are being discussed. Advocate Mtho, thank you very much for joining me. So trade and investment, obviously a very important area, and in a way, you know, the basis on which the BRICS Business Council was actually set up. What are some of the key issues that have come out, the challenges and some of the solutions that you've been discussing with your peers?
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us. I think the challenge from the South African point of view that we've highlighted is the fact that 10 years in the establishment of the BRICS Business Council, South Africa unfortunately maintains a deficit across all the 4 member states, or 5 with us, and that is something that it's been documented as a challenge, but we want to convert it into an opportunity, because we want to make sure that our membership in the BRICS Business Council is also beneficial for South Africa and the continent. So we've picked up that the deficit is actually a good starting point and an opportunity for us to increase our trade and also diversify the markets that we trade with currently.
Now, of course, South Africa is working at a low base. I mean, for example, the BRICS economies account for about a third of global GDP. But obviously China accounts for 70% of that, which then means South Africa accounts for a very small proportion of that. How do we then go from this low base to a higher base? We know that we want our BRICS partners to help to facilitate that, but what do we do as South Africa in order to make that happen as well?
So I think from a quantity point of view, because it also becomes a numbers game, South Africa has an opportunity now to actually express and implement what we've always said, that our membership in BRICS is for the African continent. So what we need to do is that let us expose the 1 billion plus population as a marketplace, expose the huge demand for infrastructure across the continent as our contribution. And in that way, we'll actually be able to make a significant contribution, because ultimately our land space is so limited. We only have 60 million South Africans. But if we start talking about the Africa opportunity, that's actually an opportunity for us that we think will be a good contribution into BRICS. And in that way, you start at least competing from a population number point of view, from a land mass point of view. And obviously, that also gives us access to more resources, more agricultural land, and the other opportunities around infrastructure and logistics.
What about the issue of skills? What kind of skills are needed for your portfolio? Is there enough investment being made into the skills that are needed for Africans in general, as well as South Africans, to be able to take advantage of better trade and investment?
So one of the priority of our working group is knowledge sharing and capacity building. We do analyze that, relatively speaking, we do need to have a skills drive in Africa for us to be able to deepen industrialization and create a manufacturing base. And also with digital economies coming up, some of the skills are highly concentrated in India and in China, in the BRICS communities, but not so much so in Africa. So for us to be competitive, we need to have that investment taking place in in Africa and developing African skills in that likes. So there is a working group on skills development, but that is also very important for trade and investment, because then you need to be able to create products that are competitive, that are in demand. From an investment point of view, you need to have the financial know-how and the ability to create projects that are bankable and attractive to the global economy. So it's soft and hard skills that we need to be developing so that we can compete with our colleagues across the community of BRICS.
You're a relatively young business leader. How excited are you about the BRICS proposition and what it could possibly do, not just for South Africa, but the wider continent?
Look, it is an exciting opportunity. I think you get more excited actually when you host it to understand its magnitude. But I think where we are now, relatively my age, it's an opportunity that I think Africans need to be grabbing, because it is a conversation that is deliberate about economic development. It is a community of emerging markets. So we all share the same desire of creating new skills, creating new asset bases, creating new infrastructure. So it is a conversation of the new, and obviously it is a big market itself. In the population size, plus 3 billion people, that is a huge market. So even if African goods end up in just the BRICS economies, it's already half the world's appetite. So I think I'm very excited about it. But what we need to do, we need to start making sure that the work of the council finds expression in the lives of African entrepreneurs. So take it out of the boardrooms, take it away from the policymakers, and make it part and parcel of entrepreneurship development on the continent.
Thank you very much, Advocate Mtho. I've been in conversation with Advocate Mtho Xulu. He is the head of the Trade and Investment Working Group for the BRICS Business Council South Africa chapter, just giving us his views around some of the issues around that particular portfolio, clearly sounding excited about the prospect of BRICS and particularly these working groups and what they can do to ensure that policies put in place to ensure that African countries, specifically South Africa as a member of the BRICS group, does manage to excel and grow its economy and deal with those deficits, those trade deficits that it generally has with other BRICS nations. From me, it's back to you in studio.